Imagine standing at the edge of everything you know. The universe stretches before you, 100 billion galaxies, each one containing hundreds of billions of stars. And in the silence of all that vast, humbling space, one question has haunted humanity since the very first human being looked up at the night sky. Is anyone out there? Now imagine the greatest scientific mind in human history, a man who reshaped our understanding of space, time, light, and gravity. Sitting alone in his study, late at night, surrounded by equations he himself created, what did he believe? Did Albert Einstein, the father of modern physics, believe in God? Here's the thing. Most people think they already know the answer to that question. Scientists will tell you Einstein was an atheist. Religious people will tell you he was a believer. And almost everyone, on both sides, is missing the full story, because the truth is far more surprising, far more nuanced, and far more profound than almost anyone realizes. Stay with me, because by the end of this, I promise you, you will never think about Einstein, science, or faith in quite the same way again. Albert Einstein. The name alone carries a kind of gravity. Pun very much intended. Born in Ulm, Germany in 1879, he grew up to become the most recognizable scientist in human history. His theory of relativity, E equals mx squared, the photoelectric effect, the bending of light around massive objects. He didn't just discover new things about the universe, he fundamentally changed the way the entire human race thinks about reality itself. But here's what most people don't talk about. Behind the wild white hair, behind the equations and the Nobel Prize, behind the famous photograph of him sticking out his tongue, there was a deeply thoughtful man wrestling with something far bigger than physics. He was a man asking the oldest question our species has ever asked. Is this universe, with all its staggering beauty, all its breathtaking order, all its unfathomable complexity, is it the product of something beyond human comprehension? Does it point towards something more? For thousands of years, that question belonged to priests, prophets, and philosophers. Then science arrived, and some people decided it had finally made the question obsolete. They said, "We have equations now, we have data, we have evidence, we don't need God anymore." But Einstein, the greatest scientist of the 20th century, quietly, consistently, and powerfully refused to agree. He spent his entire life sitting at the uncomfortable intersection of science and something he could only describe as all. And what he believed, what he said, what he wrote in private letters and public interviews, it will challenge everything you thought you knew about the relationship between faith and reason. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with the science, because you cannot understand what Einstein believed until you understand what Einstein discovered. The year is 1905. Einstein is 26 years old. He is not a famous professor. He is not working in a prestigious university laboratory. He is a patent clerk, sitting in a government office in Bern, Switzerland, reviewing other people's inventions during the day and quietly rewriting the laws of physics in his spare time. And in that single year, one miraculous year, he published 4 scientific papers that changed everything. 4 papers. Each one, on its own, would have been enough to make a scientist famous for life. Together, they rewrote our understanding of the universe from the ground up. He explained that light is not just a wave, it also behaves as a particle. He proved mathematically that atoms are real, at a time when many scientists were still debating whether atoms actually existed. He introduced the special theory of relativity, the revolutionary idea that space and time are not fixed, not absolute, not the same for everyone, but woven together into a single flexible fabric that can stretch and compress depending on how fast you are moving. And he gave the world the most famous equation ever written, E equals mc squared. Energy and mass are not different things. They are the same thing, expressed differently. Matter is frozen energy. Energy is liberated matter. 2 faces of one coin. Just let that sink in for a moment. Then 10 years later, he completed his true masterpiece, the general theory of relativity. And this one was so strange, so radical, so beautifully counterintuitive, that it took the scientific community years to fully accept it. Here is what it said. Gravity is not a force. It is not some invisible hand reaching across space and pulling objects together. Gravity is the curvature of space-time itself. When a massive object, like the sun, sits in space, it warps the fabric of reality around it, the way a heavy bowling ball warps a stretched rubber sheet. And other objects, like the Earth, don't get pulled toward the sun. They simply follow the curve in space-time that the sun has created. It is one of the most beautiful ideas in the history of human thought. And notice something about it. It doesn't just describe the universe, it sounds almost like a poem. It sounds almost like philosophy. That was not lost on Einstein, because when he looked at his own equations, when he sat back and stared at what he had written, he didn't just see mathematics. He saw something that stopped him in his tracks. The universe has laws, not just rules, not just tendencies, deep, elegant, jaw-droppingly beautiful mathematical laws. The universe is not chaos, it is not random. It is structured, ordered, and governed by principles so precise that we can write them down on paper and use them to predict the behavior of objects billions of light years away. Think about that for a moment. You can sit in a room on planet Earth with a pencil and a piece of paper, and you can calculate with extraordinary accuracy what is happening to a star on the other side of the observable universe. Why does that work? Why should the universe be mathematical at all? The physicist Eugene Wigner once called this the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics, and he meant it sincerely. It is genuinely strange. Numbers are a human invention, or at least a human discovery, and yet they describe physical reality with a precision that borders on miraculous. Pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, appears not just in geometry, but in the equations that describe ocean waves, in quantum mechanics, in the statistics of random events, in the physics of black holes. The same handful of constants appears again and again across every scale of the universe, from the behavior of subatomic particles to the structure of galaxy clusters. Einstein felt this mystery more deeply than perhaps anyone. He once wrote that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. Read that again. The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. Of all the possible universes that could have existed, universes of pure chaos, universes with no laws, universes where nothing could be predicted or understood, we happen to live in one that follows rules so elegant, so consistent, so mathematically precise, that a human being with a brain the size of a grapefruit can sit down and figure them out. Was that an accident? Einstein didn't think so, and the deeper he went into physics, the more this conviction grew. Now here is where the story gets truly fascinating, and this is the part that most people have never heard. The year is 1929. Einstein is 50 years old and the most famous scientist on the planet, and one day a telegram arrives at his home. It is from a rabbi in New York, Rabbi Herbert Goldstein, who has heard rumors and reports that Einstein does not believe in God. He wants to know the truth. The telegram is direct and simple. It reads, "Do you believe in God?" Einstein wrote back, and he did it in 50 words. 50 words that have been argued about, quoted, misquoted, celebrated, and contested ever since. Here is what he said. "I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings." Spinoza's God. Now, who is Spinoza, and why does it matter? Baruch Spinoza was a 17th century Dutch philosopher, and he was one of the most radical thinkers of his era. He argued something that got him thrown out of his own religious community, that God and nature are not separate things, they are one and the same. The universe, in its totality, in its laws, in its structure, in its breathtaking order, that is God. The laws of nature are not created by God. They do not operate under God. They are God. This is called pantheism, and Einstein found it deeply compelling. Now let's be precise about what this means, because this is important. Einstein did not believe in a personal God. He said this clearly, repeatedly, and without apology. He did not believe in a God who listens to prayers. He did not believe in a God who intervenes in human affairs, who chooses sides in wars, who cures diseases on request, who rewards the righteous and punishes the wicked. He did not believe in life after death. He was not a practicing Jew, despite being born into a Jewish family. He was not a Christian. He was not a Muslim. In 1954, just 1 year before he died, Einstein wrote in a private letter, "I have repeatedly said that in my opinion, the idea of a personal God is a childlike one." And he meant it. But, and this is the part that gets lost, he was equally clear that he was not an atheist. He found atheism just as unsatisfying as naive religious belief. He described atheists as people who were missing something, people who could not hear a kind of music that was quietly playing in the fabric of the universe. He called himself instead a deeply religious non-believer, or, in perhaps his most famous phrase, a person of cosmic religious feeling. So what is cosmic religious feeling? What does that actually mean? Einstein described it as the emotion that rises in a human being when they genuinely confront the mystery of the universe. It is not the fear of divine punishment. It is not the comfort of prayer. It is something older and stranger and more primal than either of those things. It is the feeling that arises when you stand before something so vast, so ordered, so impossibly beautiful, and you realize that your mind can barely begin to hold it. Not worship of a being, something more like worship of being itself. And here is the question that Einstein never stopped asking, the question that sits right at the border between science and everything science cannot reach. If the universe has this kind of order, if its laws are this precise, this elegant, this consistent, where did those laws come from? What determined them? Why these laws and not different ones? Why any laws at all? Science can describe the laws. Science has not explained why they exist. That question remains wide open. It was open in Einstein's time. It is open today, and it may never be fully closed. Now let's step back, because this is where the conversation gets bigger than just Einstein. People of faith have always found Einstein's words both inspiring and a little complicated. On one hand, here is the greatest scientific mind of the modern era, saying clearly and repeatedly that he is not an atheist, that the universe possesses a kind of grandeur, a kind of order, that fills him with something indistinguishable from religious awe. Many believers find that deeply meaningful. Many theologians argue that what Einstein was pointing at, this inexplicable mathematical elegance, this unreasonable comprehensibility, is precisely what their traditions have always called the fingerprints of God. And the argument doesn't stop with Einstein's feelings, it goes much deeper. Some people believe that the fine-tuning of the universe is one of the most profound mysteries in all of science. The physical constants, the specific numerical values that govern how strong gravity is, how powerful the electromagnetic force is, what mass an electron has, appear to be set with extraordinary precision. If gravity were even slightly stronger than it is, the universe would have collapsed back in on itself moments after the Big Bang. If it were even slightly weaker, matter would never have clumped together to form galaxies, stars, or planets. The window for a universe that supports complexity, and eventually life, is razor thin. Many thinkers, both religious and not, find that staggering. Others argue differently, and their argument is worth taking seriously too. Many scientists and philosophers suggest that the appearance of design is just that, an appearance. They propose that if there are an infinite or near infinite number of universes, each with slightly different physical constants, then by pure probability, some of them will have the right conditions for complexity and life. And naturally, we find ourselves in one of those, because we couldn't exist in any other kind. You cannot observe a universe that doesn't allow observers. This reasoning is called the anthropic principle, and it is, in its own way, a genuinely elegant idea. Scientists continue to debate these questions at the very frontier of physics, cosmology, and philosophy. What existed before the Big Bang, or whether the word before even means anything when time itself may have begun at that moment, remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of human knowledge. String theory, the multiverse, quantum cosmology, these are not settled science. They are humanity's current best attempt to peer behind the curtain of existence. And the curtain has not fully lifted. Many philosophers suggest that science and faith are not actually answering the same question. Science asks how. How does the universe work? How did it begin? How do its laws operate? Philosophy and religion have historically asked why. Why does anything exist at all? Why is there something rather than nothing? Why does the universe permit minds capable of wondering about it? These may not be competing answers. They may be answers to completely different questions, questions that both matter enormously. What is beyond argument is this: Einstein, who understood the physical universe more deeply than almost any human being who has ever lived, never became dismissive. He never decided the mystery was unimportant. He never stopped being moved by it. He wrote, late in his life, that the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. He said that whoever has lost the capacity for wonder, whoever can no longer stop and feel awe, is as good as spiritually dead. He didn't care whether you called it God, or nature, or the universe, or the laws of physics. He cared that you felt it. He cared that you didn't look away. So, did Einstein believe in God? Let's be honest about what he said and what he didn't say. He did not believe in the God of traditional religion, not the God of the Bible or the Torah or the Quran as many people understand those texts, not a God who hears prayers, who performs miracles, who judges the living and the dead, who created the world in 6 days and placed human beings at the center of it. He said so directly, more than once, in letters and interviews throughout his life, but he believed something. He believed it deeply, and he never stopped believing it. He believed that the universe is not a meaningless accident. He believed that its order, its elegance, its mathematical precision, its sheer and staggering comprehensibility, all of it points towards something that we have barely begun to understand. He believed that a human being who looks at the night sky and feels nothing, who looks at the equations describing reality and sees only math, is missing something essential, something real. He believed that the feeling of awe is not a weakness, it is not superstition, it is not something that science grows you out of. It is, he said, the source of all true art and all true science. It is the cradle of everything, and maybe, just maybe, that is the most important thing Einstein ever told us. Not E equals mc squared, not the curvature of space-time, not the photoelectric effect. This, that a life without wonder is a life only half-lived, that the universe is not a machine to be operated, it is a mystery to be inhabited, that the questions worth asking are not always the ones that have answers. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't out there in the galaxies, or hidden in the equations on a chalkboard somewhere. Perhaps the greatest mystery is that we, tiny, fragile, short-lived creatures on a pale blue dot, in an unremarkable solar system, in one ordinary galaxy among hundreds of billions, are somehow able to ask the question at all. That we look up and feel awe. That we look inward and find meaning. That we reach towards something we cannot name, cannot measure, cannot fully explain, and we reach anyway. Einstein once said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Maybe that's why his greatest discoveries weren't born in a laboratory. They were born in his mind, in that quiet, luminous space between equations and wonder, in that place where science and something deeper have always, quietly, held hands. He didn't have a name for that something, neither do most of us, but he never stopped looking for it, and perhaps that search, that honest, humble, lifelong search, is the most human thing about him. What do you think? Did Einstein believe in God? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this made you think, even a little, subscribe to God and Science Official, because there is so much more to explore. Subscribe, like, share, and comment to God and Science Official.